So, in continuation of what you were saying, the community, the main community who instigated this violence in the first place, if we look at the history of Manipur and the history of the Northeast per se, we will be able to clearly understand that wherever these Chin cookies have settled, destruction has followed. This holds true about not just Manipur, about Assam, about Tripura, about Mizoram, everywhere, the entire Northeast. So this is a pattern of violence. Wherever the Chinkies have settled, this is a pattern of violence that the Northeast is already familiar with, but perhaps it is quite new to the rest of Bharat. Vladimir was talking about the Naga Kuki conflict of 1992-1993, a dark chapter in the history of modern day Manipur. The Nagas at that time, they were inhabiting large parts of the hill districts of Unsung, Senapati, Churachandpur as well, Tamenglong and Chandel. The Kukis at that time, they were settled in the eastern and southern parts of Chandel district. And besides a few scattered settlements in entire Churachandpur district and pockets of district as well. Uh, with the eruption of the clashes between the Nagas and the Kukis, the upsurge in violence and political instability, of course, it led to the loss of many innocent lives. Houses were burned, villages were uprooted mercilessly. Thousands of Nagas were displaced, especially from the sensitive border town of More, and many Nagas were killed in broad daylight by the terrorists. The impact was felt in the impact of this violence was felt in nearby Nagaland as well. The Cookies even went to the extent of applying terror tactics to cow down the administration and occupy lands and property. Yeah, if we see historically as well, Professor Gangume Kame has done detailed research on this, that how the Cookies had always challenged and stood in the way of the political aspirations of the Nagas. Uh, if 1,000 of either Tangkul Nagas or Kabui Nagas in Manipur were killed, there would be a vacuum. And they understood this very well. But if 1,000 Cookies got killed, that would be filled in by their large scale illegal immigration from outside of Manipur. So it was towards the late 1980s and the early 1990s that the attacks of these Cookies began. They started attacking Naga settlements in the hills of Manipur, and their aim was to force these indigenous Nagas out of their lands. I would say that the Nagas they would perhaps have allowed the Cookies to settle and live, provided these Cookies recognized Naga ownership over vast swaths of the hills of Manipur, which had been traditionally Naga areas. But the Cookies wanted to claim these lands of the Nagas as their own. That was the root of the problem. Their objective, the objective of the Cookie organizations was, and it remains so till this day, was to carve out a separate administration from a major part of the hill districts of Manipur in the name of Zalingam or Kuki land. So, uh, you see, many Kuki dominated areas in present day Churachandpur district and several other areas of Manipur, these areas were formed, where earlier the original habitations of the Zeliangrong Nagas, especially the Rommi Nagas. But today, as of now, at present, there is hardly any Naga population left in today's Churachandpur. So, an indisputable fact here is that in the Naga Kuki conflict of the 1990s is that the nomadic cookies have always been the aggressors, and the indigenous Nagas only reacted to protect their homes and lands, which is inseparable from their identity, from their way of life, from their culture and civilization. And within a few months of the beginning of the Naga Kuki clashes in May 1992 in More, the tension was palpable. The number of attacks increased cases of killings, abductions, torture, mysterious disappearances of Naga men and violence against Naga women and Naga girls were almost regularly heard. There was one such incident where the Kukis had molested and gang raped four Naga women and kidnapped 12 Naga men, out of which four could never be traced. And later, the badly mutilated body of one Naga man from the Maring Naga community was found at a cemetery in More town. But armed Kuki militants did not allow his family to take away the body. The border town of More was the most affected of all as a result of this violence. And most of these killings and violence took place along the NH2, the Imphal Dimapur stretch of the National Highway 2, which was then known as the NH39, if I'm not wrong. Uh, and various militant organizations such as KNO, Kuki National Organization, KDF, Kuki Defense Force, KNF, Kuki National Front, Kuki National Army, KNA, all these organizations, they came together, they sent out threatening letters to the Nagas of More and other Naga villages in Chandel district, the Tangkul Nagas of southeast Ukhrul, and also those Nagas were residing in Senapati district to leave their residences immediately or face dire consequences. So when the Nagas of More uh, and uh, and other places, when they could no longer withstand the atrocities of the Kukis, hundreds of Naga men, women, and children fled More and other Naga inhabited villages of Chandel by August 1992. This was a major exodus of the Nagas, and after this exodus of the Nagas, especially from More town became the cradle of Kuki militancy in Manipur over a period of time. And today, at present, the town is home. It is home to top Kuki commanders and militant leaders. If we go there, we can see for ourselves clearly how their houses, uh, surrounded by high walls, are topped with barbed wire. And despite several memoranda that was being submitted to the then Congress Chief Minister of Manipur, Rajkumar, during the same, no effective action was taken to stop this genocide of the Nagas committed by the Kukis. In fact, during the Singh's government could could just do nothing to trace the missing Nagas and also provide help and support to their families. So there have been many such conflicts, especially in More. Before coming to the other states, I would like to describe about the next bloody conflict that was again centered in More, the Tamil Kuki conflict of 1995. And if you see, most of these conflicts, they have a common pattern because more often than not, they have been centered in the border districts and the border towns of Manipur, such as Churachandpur and More. More is the gateway to Southeast Asian nations via Myanmar. In fact, More, I would like to mention here, More was one of the most peaceful Indian border towns till at least the early 1990s, and it houses a significant population of Tamils who have lived in the Northeast for nearly half a century, beginning from the 1960s onwards, when the first Tamil settlements came up in More. And prior to the arrival of these Tamils, Meitei Hindus had already settled in More. They already had their residences in More. And it was only after the 1960s when trade began that more and more people from diverse cultural and religious backgrounds began coming into More. The Tamils of More, they are largely Hindus, and they have been living peacefully ever since. They are still rooted to their Tamil culture and traditions, although their numbers have been sharply decreasing over the years. But even today, the Tamils can still boast of being the largest number among all other ethnic non-Manipuri trading communities in More. Next to the Tamils, in terms of their control over trade, were the Marwaris and the Punjabis. But both their numbers have dwindled to a very, very small fraction of what it used to be till at least the early 1990s. And apart from these three communities, there are the Manipuri Muslims, the Bangals, and the Nepalis as well. There is also a significant, there was, in fact, there was a significant population of Biharis as well who were once known for their control over the cereal and the grain trade, but their population has been receding in Moreh over the past few decades. Moreh was once known to be a much more cosmopolitan town than even the capital of Manipur, that is Imphal. It boasted of a beautiful multicultural diaspora. Deepavali was celebrated there among all the communities together. Pongal celebrations in Moreh, they were they were as big and grand as in any other town of southern India. But as time passed, this lucrative border trading town, Moreh, became a highly prized bone of contention. And by that time, the Tamils were a majority community in Moreh. Their population was estimated to be roughly about 15,000, almost half of the town's population. They dominated various business sectors such as steel, textiles, ornaments, etc. And many families from other communities also, like the Sikhs, Orias, Telugus, Kannadigas, Malayalis, Bengalis, they also kept coming to Moreh and settled down here in due course of time. But these people, they never laid any hegemony claims upon the town as their own. And it was during this same period, the early 1990s, that talks were going on between the governments of India and Myanmar for legalizing cross border trade. And Moreh at that time was fast emerging as the main transit point for drug trafficking and smuggling of goods from Myanmar. Large scale influx of illegal Chinki immigrants from Myanmar to Moreh and the help and support extended to them by numerous Kuki militant outfits which were active in the region made these people, the Chin-Kukis, numerically strong in comparison to other communities who had been residing in Moreh since several centuries. Okay, and gradually, as their numbers increased, the Kukis began exerting themselves upon others, especially the Nagas and the Tamils, leading to extortion and various other acts of everyday vandalism. And today, at present, the Kukis are the majority community in Moreh. But besides immigration, another factor which we need to understand that contributed the declining numbers and declining influence of the Tamil population in Moreh was the signing of a border trade agreement between India and Myanmar in 1994 and the subsequent legalization of cross-border trade between the two countries, which was done in 1995. Now, prior to the signing of this border trade agreement, only an illegal barter system existed between India and Myanmar. But after this border trade agreement was signed, a border trade market was set up by the government of Myanmar at a place called Nampalong near Moreh, which is like you can say next to the no man's land between the two borders. And although it allowed free movement of people from both countries with valid documents, but a major change that came up with the establishment of this huge market complex at Nampalong was that cheap Chinese and Southeast Asian products made in countries like Thailand and Vietnam, ranging from clothes, cosmetics, footwear, utensils, foods, toys, etc., that earlier Indian traders used to sell inside Myanmar. So these cheap Chinese products now began to flood the shops of Nampalong market after this border trade agreement was signed, and immediately it changed the entire course of trade and commerce in the region. So the markets of Myanmar soon came to be dominated by these made in China goods. So India's bilateral trade with Myanmar naturally declined. The Burmese people, they started shopping in Nampalong rather than Moreh. And Indian traders, especially the non-Manipuri population in Moreh and the Tamil community in particular, who till that time control the Indo-Burmese trade, they were the most adversely affected. Because like now, their businesses, as if they suddenly suffered an unanticipated shock. And eventually, the lack of business opportunities for these people compelled many of them to leave the town. Many of them went back to Chennai. So in a sense, the Nampalong market took away control over the supply chains of goods from Burma that was till then completely in the hands of the Tamil businessmen and traders in Moreh. And they cater to both retail and wholesale buyers of goods from further inland in India and as well as goods that reached India via Burma. They all had their business networks intact in both the countries, in both India and Burma, which helped them to run their supply chain. But the coming up of the Nampalong market that sells almost everything one can name, it opened up a vast network of the Burmese business world to traders on the Indian side of the border. So instead of making their wholesale deals with businessmen in Moreh, they could now make it directly with the suppliers in Burma. Also, various factors such as conflicts within Manipur, frequent burns, and economic blockades being called by insurgents. These factors were also quite responsible for crippling the supply chain of the traders within India. They faced constant threats from various insurgent organizations and businessmen as well who refused to pay the extortion money. And the ones who refused to pay extortion money, they were shot dead. Now, coming to the conflict, it was towards the latter half of the 1980s and the beginning of the 1990s that key militants imposed a tax on the Tamil traders of the area. And at that time, as I mentioned, the Tamils dominated almost 75% of the local border trade. The KSO, that is Kuki Students Organization, it declared that the town would remain closed on Sundays. And immediately after this declaration of the KSO, the Mighties raised their opposition. So it led to a cycle of frequent violence and standoffs between the Kukis and other communities in Moreh. And it was around the same time when news reports of miscreants attacking Hindu temples on the Indian side of the Indo-Myanmar international border came to be frequently reported. So the multicultural social fabric of Moreh was gradually beginning to disintegrate. Many non-Manipuri families, they either moved back to their native states or some of them also relocated to Imphal. And Moreh was now left with only Mighty and Tamil colonies on the one hand and a completely separate Kuki township on the other. The Nagas had already left after the bloody Naga-Kuki clashes of 1992. Now, tension was already increasing between the Kukis and the Tamils when in April 1995, a Tamil businessman was kidnapped by Kuki militants for ransom. And this particular incident came as a big blow to the vibrant Tamil community in Moreh, whose existence now was at risk. And they refused to pay the ransom. Since they refused to pay the ransom, the Kuki militants killed the businessman. And although the Manipur state government at that time, although efforts were made on its part to restore peace in the area, but this incident acted as a trigger in arousing the anger and passions of the Tamil community. They immediately organized a rally to protest against the murder. And the Kukis attacked the Tamils during the rally, resulting in deadly clashes between the two communities. Many of them died, many others were injured for life. Tamil houses, their shops were looted and destroyed by murderous Kuki mobs. They also attacked and defiled a few old Tamil temples in the area. They also stormed the Tamil dominated localities in Moreh and set on fire all their houses. So, not just these clashes not just led to a loss of lives, but they also set off a major reverse migration. That is the exodus of the Tamil Hindus from Moreh to to other safer locations, either in Imphal or in other parts of the country. So I'll now come to Assam and the history of conflicts of these Kukis with various other tribes in the state. Uh, the most infamous among these conflicts in Assam are the ones that involve the Karbis, the Karbi tribe vis-a-vis the Kukis on the one hand, and the Masa tribe vis-a-vis the Kukis on the other. Let's first begin with the Karbi conflict. The Kukis had so Karbi Anglong. This conflict was centered in Karbi Anglong, which is the largest district of Assam. Earlier, it was known as Mike Hills or Mike Pahar, as we call it. So the Kukis had started migrating into Assam's largest district of Karbi Anglong approximately in the 1930s, and conflicts began after that between the Kukis and the indigenous Karbi people of the district. And the frequency of these conflicts increased from the 1980s onwards, when tension was already brewing between the Nagas and the Kukis in neighboring Manipur. The situation became very ugly from 1999 onwards, when the Kukis from neighboring Nagaland and Manipur, they began demanding political autonomy. In Karbi Anglong, we need to understand this important fact. In Karbi Anglong, the Kukis were mainly concentrated in this region, in a forested region, which is known as Singhakhon Pahar. In Assamese, we call it Singhakhon Pahar, Singhakhon Hills. It is a small mountainous region in the Difu subdivision of Karbi Anglong, and also borders the world famous Kaziranga National Park. And this forested area, Singhakhon Pahar, it is famous. It is well known for the production of high quality ginger. And Kukis have established complete control over this ginger business, over this ginger trade. And geographically, if we see the land area in Karbi Anglong district, the hilly district of Assam, the land area is very large, and the population of the different tribes is relatively small. So the economic space remains narrow, and conflicts begin. When communities have to compete within this narrow space, not just among themselves but also with migrants. So the tribes they look for exclusive political space with enough power to fulfill their aspirations. The Kukis were organizing themselves into a political entity towards the late 1980s and the 1990s. To give it the appearance of a hill council. And the predominant political party in Karbi Anglong at that time was the ASDC, that is the Autonomous State Demand Committee, which was originally known as the PDF, the People's Democratic Front. It was set up as a mass organization of CPIML with the aim of a separate statehood for Karbi Anglong. And it had agreed to the formation of the Hill Council of the Kukis. And as a result of this decision, the Kuki Revolutionary Army, KRA, which is a Manipur-based Kuki militant outfit, it began to gradually expand its scope of activities. It began demanding taxes from the Karbi residents of the area. So, emboldened by the support of the KRA, the Kuki Revolutionary Army, a section of the Kukis now raised the demand for the integration of the Kuki inhabited areas of Karbi Anglong, integrating these areas with the Kuki inhabited areas of Manipur, so that they can fulfill their dream of the establishment of their imaginary Kuki land. And this brought the Kukis into direct conflict with the Karbis. The Karbis also had their own militant outfits. The erstwhile UPDS, that was the United People's Democratic Solidarity, which was one of the most dreaded among all. And the Karbi militant outfits, including the UPDS, vehemently disputed the KRA's projection of the Kuki population at more than 35,000 at that time in the Singhakhon Pahar. And they claimed that the Karbis claimed that it was a tacit move which was adopted by the KRA to justify the Kukis' demand for an autonomous council or a separate administrative setup. And accordingly, the KRA was branded by the Karbis as an organization of outsiders. The KRA was the KRA that initially instigated the violence under the code name Operation Volcano. The objective was to protect all the non-Karbis specifically meaning Kukis residing in Karbi Anglong and Karbi villages, primarily in the Singhakon Pahar. These villages were attacked in the dead end of the night, and many Karbi youths were kidnapped. But the Kukis alleged that uh, their youth had been kidnapped by the Karbi youth. So it led to a cycle of death and violence. Several houses in different villages of Singhakon Pahar were torched by Kuki militants towards October, November 2003. And the Karbi militants too, they also retaliated with the kidnapping and killing of Kuki students from schools and torching of several Kuki houses were torched in different villages of Karbi Anglong. The KRA, the Kuki Revolutionary Army, it had accused the Karbi community of trying to chase out the Kukis from Karbi Anglong by claiming that the Karbis are jealous of the members of the Kuki community, for they have been able to establish their control over the lucrative ginger business in a district where vast areas of land cannot be cultivated, where vast areas of land are uncultivable. And it is certainly true that the Kukis have prospered economically as successful ginger cultivators in the Singhakson Hills. But Karbi organizations, on the other hand, they were of the opinion that the Kukis are a nomadic community. They are in a relentless pursuit of land for shifting cultivation, and therefore they posed a serious threat to the indigenous Karbis of the district by encroaching upon the ancestral lands and livelihoods of the Karbis, and therefore they had to be thrown out of Karbi Anglong. They had no place in Karbi Anglong. And these Karbi organizations, they also accuse the Kukis of importing the gun culture to the peaceful hills of Karbi Anglong. And it was towards the fag end of the 1990s that the Kukis boasted of a highly profitable market for their ginger business in Manipur. The conflict was becoming uglier day by day, especially after the killings of 37 Hindu Karbis on towards the I think it was 24th or 25th of March 2004 by the Kuki Revolutionary Army. 37 Hindu Karbis were killed at 3 separate places in Karbi Anglong district in a single day. And this was one of the worst massacres in the Karbi Kuki conflict, which led to a sustained campaign by the Kukis to cleanse this entire region of Karbi Anglong of all Karbi presence. And it was later reported that, as per the data that I have in hand, that over 30,000 Khasi people, Khasis were residing in several areas of Karbi Anglong at that time bordering Meghalaya. They had fled the district towards Meghalaya's Jaintia Hills in the immediate aftermath of the clashes. Now, after the Karbi conflict in Assam, there was another deadly conflict between the Hindu Dimasa community of Assam and the Christian Mars. Now, who are these Mars? Okay, so the time period of this conflict was around the same time as the Karbi conflict in 2003-2004. Now, who are these Mars? The Mars are they are also a Christian tribe who belong to the same Chin, Kuki, Zoni, Mizo ethnic stock of tribes, and they are spread over Manipur, Mizoram, and also there is a significant population of Mars in several pockets of southern Assam's NC Hills district, which is an extremely sensitive and sparsely populated district, NC Hills district, and it is now known as Dima Hasao district. Control over the NC Hills district is extremely important for militant organizations in the Northeast because of its location, because of the location of the district. The NC Hills district, or Dima Hasao, as it is currently known, it provides an entry route to Nagaland, to Manipur, Mizoram, and Meghalaya. Apart from Kachar and Karbi Anglong districts of Assam. Also, the MC Hills district, it is the traditional homeland of the Dimasa community. The Dimasa community once ruled over large parts of Assam and the plain areas of present-day Nagaland. Now, what is important to note here is that besides the Karbis, the Dimasas are one of the few tribal groups in the northeast who have still preserved their traditional belief systems from uh, Christian proselytization, from the attempts of the Christian missionaries to proselytize them. Uh, from the demographic point of view, the Dimasas are the largest tribe in the NC Hills, comprising around one third of the total population, and they are followed by the Semi Nagas and the Mars, the Christian Mars. But what we need to understand here is that these Mars, they were never the original inhabitants of the NC Hills district. Because if we see the census records of 1901, 1911, 1921, 1931, there were no Mars in the NC Hills. Their own historical records, the own historical records of the Mars say that they first entered India through Manipur. And in Manipur, even till this day, they are infamous for causing all kinds of trouble. Their influx to the NC Hills began in one and two numbers during the pre-independence period because the British government played an important role in settling these Mars in the present day region of the NC Hills to counter the Hindu Nagas, the Hindu Zeliangrong Nagas, especially the Zeme Nagas. But over a period of time, uh, mainly facilitated by political factors and the lure of land and other economic benefits. It was after 1947 that the Mars they expanded their footprint from Manipur to Mizoram and Assam, particularly the NC Hills and Kachar districts. Uh, and until 1951, uh, the Mars, they find no mention. There is no mention of any Mar person in the census of the NC Hills till 1951. It was after the formation of the NC Hills District Council in 1951 that the population of the Mars was recorded to be around 1145 persons. Okay, so till 1951, there was no mention of any Mar in the census of the NC Hills. It was after the formation of the NC Hills District Council that their population was this much, 1145. So, so it was a drastic increase. There was a sudden increase of the Mar population in the NC Hills, especially in certain areas like in Mahur and Maibong subdivisions. There is another village, Harangajau village in Haflong subdivision. So in these areas, their population has started to gradually increase, beginning from the early 1960s onwards, and it had increased exponentially by the late 1960s. Many new Mar villages had come up in different subdivisions of the NC Hills. So a deadly conflict was already becoming inevitable. Now, if we see the census reports from 1955 to 1966, 1955 to 1996, we can observe a more than 600% growth rate in the population of the Mars in the NC Hills, much more than the Dimasa population during the same period. And due to continuous influx from Manipur, their population in the NC Hills registered a sharp increase. In fact, the Mars became the third largest population category in the district towards the late 1990s. And this was an abnormal increase. And this abnormal increase in the population of the Mars, it was certainly not because of biological factors. It was a well-conceived strategy. Everything was pre-planned because the Mars had already enlisted their names in the Mar Village Council. And then they began shifting to the new establishments in NC Hills that had come up. This was done to avoid detection of their migration from Manipur and various other places. They had and still have an endless hunger for land. And therefore, these Mars are known to have they have a history of causing trouble wherever they were allowed to settle. Even in Mizoram, they have caused trouble to such an extent that they did not settle for anything less than a separate hill development council for them. The government of Assam, during the tenure of, I think, former chief minister of the Congress party, Hiteshwar Saikia, uh, the then Assam government under Hiteshwar Saikia had granted the Mars a development council in Kachar district. But despite such pampering, the Mars killed and massacred those same people, Hindu Dimasas in particular, who let them reside in their territory in the first place. And like their Kuki brothers in neighboring Karbi Anglong, the Mars, despite being recent settlers in the NC Hills district, as I've already explained, they began to assert themselves over the Hindu Dimasas both socially and politically since the late 1990s. And since then, this region has been plagued by unprecedented violence. The Mars demanded that the areas inhabited by them to the NC Hills, will have to be integrated in their imaginary Kuki land. And simultaneously, they also began an aggressive proselytization drive to convert the Hindu Dimasas into Christianity. And of course, thanks largely to the pre-independence policies of the British Raj and the minority appeasing post-independent Indian secular state, uh, the NC Hills district, the strategically located NC Hills district, has been a very easy bet for the Christian missionaries to accomplish their mission of Christianizing Assam. And it owes its origin to the missionary vision of establishing, they want to establish a Christian corridor in northern and southern Assam. And in this, they are aided by foreign Christian missionaries. So these Mars, they began a paid expansion spree in the entire region encompassing the NC Hills district. There was a Mar missionary and theological scholar whose name was Rochunga Pudaite from America, who is said to have begun a mass propaganda and fundraising campaign among Christians worldwide, especially in America, highlighting the cause of the Mars and seeking for donations for these Mar people. And all of this was based on concocted facts, but it found a very good response in the US. So the ground was already made fertile for the genocide, for the ethnic cleansing of the Hindu Dimasas from their own native lands. There was another organization, US based organization, which was involved in this mission, and it was called it is known as the Indo Burma Pioneering Mission, which sponsored a partnership mission society located in Manipur's Churachandpur. And this mission had close fraternal ties with that theological scholar of the Mars, Rochunga Pudaite. Uh, Tensions began when a Mizoram-based Christian militant outfit, Mar People's Convention, a democratic HPCD in short, when cadres of this militant outfit began infiltrating into the NC Hills towards the late 1980s and the beginning of the 1990s. The same period when the population of the Mars in the district saw a drastic rise. And the objective of this militant organization of the Mar People's Convention, was to begin an underground movement to press home, to raise its demand for carving out a separate state for the Mars within the Union of India, comprising of the several Mar-dominated areas in Mizoram, Manipur, Kachar, and the NC Hills district in Assam. They began attacking Hindu Dimasa settlements in 2002, leading to a bloody war. Assam's NC Hills district, as I have already mentioned, it acts, it provides a one of the shortest corridors joining Nagaland and the Manipur Hills adjacent to Myanmar with that of Bangladesh. So it was from the NC Hills that militants could easily sneak into Bangladesh via the Barak Valley and Meghalaya as well. So, uh, to implement its hegemony in the NC Hills, the Naga militant organization NACN was already active, and it was patronizing the Hindu Dimasas through large-scale investments in terms of education, in terms of healthcare. And this was done mainly with the hope of converting the Hindu Dimasas into Christianity. But the Dimasas proved equally stubborn and obstinate by steadfastly holding on to their dharmic traditions and rituals. In fact, at that time, the Hindu zone of the NC Hills, dominated by the Dimasas, it stood as a major barrier in carving out that proposed Christian corridor of the Christian militant organizations. So the Dimasas became the prime targets of the church. The Mar People's Convention, that is the HPC, and various other militant organizations, they instilled mortal fear amongst the Hindu Dimasas to either you convert or you die. So their aim was uh, uh, to, to, to facilitate a mass exodus of the Dimasas from the NC Hills to neighboring regions so that they can be reduced in terms of demography in their own homeland. The Dimasas, they were made to feel increasingly isolated in their own native lands. And the, the nefarious activities of these Christian missionaries and their terrorist organizations assumed it was becoming disastrous every passing day, which threatened the life and security of the Dimasas in quite a similar manner as that of the Hindu Karbis in 2003, 2004. So, I mean, can we still deny or overlook the angle of church conspiracy in these conflicts in the Northeast? Certainly we cannot. The fact that, the church manufactures divisive forces in the Northeast, this fact can certainly not be ignored or overlooked from the perspective of national security. Of course, it might not alone be the factor. The religious angle might not alone be the factor in the current conflict in Manipur, considering there is a layer of various factors from the drug economy to illegal immigration. But the religious angle in these conflicts certainly cannot be ignored. That's my main point. And even during the Mar-Dimasa conflict in the NC Hills, the clashes began when a group of Christian Mars attacked a Shiva temple at a place called Harangachao, and they threw away a bell hanging inside the temple. There is a sacred place of the Hindu Dimasas. It's a sacred village, Semkhor. There were several attacks on this village, and this restive atmosphere boiled over in the next couple of months, culminated into one of the worst clashes in the history of post-independent India. And Christian missionary organizations from across the world came out in support of the Mars for blocking the growing socio-political clout of the Dimasas, where 99% Hindus at that time. There was one America-based Kuki International Forum who even went to the extent of, I remember, writing an open letter to the then Chief Minister of Assam, Torun Gogoi, accusing the Assam state government for being biased and partial in its handling of the conflict since the very beginning. So I think that's all I have to say. And I mean, there were so many other communities, the Dimasas, Zemi Nagas, Rangpols, Jayates, etc., who were coexisting peacefully for hundreds of years before these Kukis migrated. So the basic human values of sharing and peaceful coexistence has never been a trait of the Kukis and the Mars in particular.